Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to speak to you about how to stop self-sabotaging your weight loss goals. But this could actually be many goals. It could be your financial goals. This could be your health goals. This could be your relationship goals. There's a broader lesson that I want to share with you, some skill sets that we as humans need to work on. But I think it's even, once you understand what I'm speaking about, you'll find that it's a little bit easier. It's not another willpower. This has nothing to do with willpower. What this has to do is tapping in to the strength that resides within all of us. And know that you have done hard things before. And this is not going to be that hard. Yes, it seems like it would be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I've tried all these things. I've tried all the diets. I've pushed all the workouts. I've starved myself. I've done this. I've done that. Let's quiet the mind and let's take a new approach. Okay. Because we all know if you keep doing the things that you were doing before, we're going to get the same results. This is just plain old common sense, right? If you have a child that keeps asking the same questions, hoping for a different answer, but the answer is always the same, you explain to the child, you can ask the question, even though the question might be changed a little bit, the answer is still the same. So you might as well accept the fact that this is how it is. So before we start, I want to have you do something for me, please. I want you to become centered and I want you to become present in this current moment. So as we talk, that I can hopefully, or what my inner wisdom is going to be hopefully telling yours, which is the same, a different story, not even a story, a different path, a different journey that can be taken. And why am I doing it this way? Because I find it the most powerful way to help people understand that you can sustain new habits and you can sustain a different way of life. And so first step is to take a breath. Do it with me. I know you're holding your breath or you're like, I can't. Yeah, you have a moment. Come on, take a deep breath. Feel it in your body. Doesn't that feel good? And I want you to notice something. I want you to notice at the top of the breath, there's a pause before you let out the breath. That's called space. And we're going to talk about space here in a moment. So there's the first step. The next step is I want you to get out of the head and into the body. And just start with your fingers, your feet, maybe feel them touching the ground, your butt sitting on a chair, your butt's driving in a car, your hands touching something, you hear something, you see something. And take a moment and just align yourself, your breath, and now. Because when you're directing your attention inward to your breath, to the different parts of your body, you will notice something shifting. The chatter, the mind, the thoughts that are constantly racing, they cease. Because you can't pay attention to the thoughts if you're paying attention to your breath and being present in this moment. That's step one, is become centered and be prepared for a different way of looking at things. Okay, that really is important. And I would say the next step is acceptance. It's surrender. Maybe that's the best word. Surrender to the reality of your current state of health, be it you are dealing with a chronic disease, you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with excess weight, you're dealing with medications that make you feel horrible, you're dealing with anxiety and stress at work or in a relationship, your kids are not, excelling. Whatever that is, I want you to surrender. And it's not a surrender of like, oh, I'm just going to fall over and just let life, trot all over me. That's not it. The surrender part is just an acceptance to the facts of the reality of this moment. And I want you to think about this for a moment. It's not, I'm giving up. The surrender is acceptance. It's acknowledging instead of fighting. It's acknowledging instead of complaining. It's acknowledging instead of identifying with the story that woe is me, nothing ever works. It's identifying with a different way of living. It's identifying with, in this moment, what's the problem, right? Or what is the reality? When you think about what the problem is, that's the struggle, right? We think about, we make it a problem. We make it bigger and bigger, bigger problem. We make that molehill into a mountain, so to speak. We think about things and we start adding on complications and then we make it so big that it seems unsurmountable. What you'll find is that when you surrender and you accept this moment, just for the reality it's just the way it is. There's no sense in complaining about the person who just cut you off. There's no sense in complaining about your neighbor whose dog keeps barking. It's just what it is. Now, what do you do in that moment? After you've surrendered, you will find that you're able to take a deep breath. Your chest can expand, your heart can open to different possibilities. And in that quiet space, remember I was talking about the space at the top of the breath before you exhale? The surrender, the acceptance of just the reality of this is what it is, gives you space to make different decisions and take different actions. That space is where we need to be in order to be moving in a different direction, to change the trajectory of whatever aspect of your life that you're working on. In this case, we're talking about weight loss. So, because I don't want this to be just another checklist. It's not another thing to do. We are talking about a different mindset. We're talking about a different way of thinking and how to approach this problem from a higher level. And then we'll get into the weeds, right? So instead of always trying to tackle the weeds and, cut down or start trying to plant new habits in a forest that's burning, this is not going to work. First of all, let's access the aerial view, seeing what's going on. I see that in my forest, there's 100 acres burning. I accept the reality of that. This is what it is. And now I see the problem. I can take inventory. I can give that space. And now I can decide, do I let the forest burn out? Maybe that is the best thing to do, the situation, whatever is occurring. Or do I call in the firefighters and the planes and we start putting out fire by adding water? Okay, now do you see you can start making different decisions without the emotional baggage or the thoughts or the identities that are typically associated with anything that we try to do. We try to make decisions based on, someone we saw on Instagram. I want to look like her. That's what I need those 6-pack abs, or man, I need to lose this to fit this whatever category or story or image that you think you need to be. We're not doing that for this. I don't even want you to lose weight because you want to reverse disease. I want you just to think about your general life habits in the sense of, how am I thinking? How am I interacting with people? How am I interacting with myself? Because once you understand, that is where the power lies. That's where the power comes, that you start making mindful choices instead of mindless choices. Okay, I know that was a lot on the surrender, but it's so important that I really want you to grasp that concept. And it's even more than a concept. It's a knowing, and it's a relief. That's the piece that you will start to accept when you have surrendered and done suffering. You will see a place and a space that you were like, has this always been here? Yes, it has. I promise. And so that's where I get so excited. And yes, okay, next. The next thing here that sometimes I really want to just, maybe I'll clarify this also with a little bit of a story. And you guys may have heard this story before, but I think it's such a powerful analogy. We went snorkeling with my family several years ago in the Florida Keys in December. And I think you probably may have heard this story. If not, I will share it now. But I'm a pretty decent swimmer. All my kids were competitive swimmers. They're great. My husband's a great swimmer. But it was a little bit rough waters, right? And so we're in these Florida Keys and we're traversing in this little boat. And I'm thinking I'm going to be okay. But I start seeing the gray clouds and I start noticing and I start feeling it and I start getting a little tense. The boat stops. We're at a place where we're going to snorkel. And it wasn't like a shallow place, obviously. It was a little bit further out because there was some cool stuff under the water that they wanted us to see. And so everyone got in the water. Everyone dispersed. I froze. And, it's not like I sank all of a sudden, but suddenly this overwhelming fear and anxiety literally clutched me and I couldn't breathe. And I thought, oh my God, I am going to die. I have to get out. I have to get out. I started to fight. I didn't know what I was doing. And in that moment, a voice came to me. It was my voice. In that moment, literally, Lori, you will be okay. Go under, look deeper. I was like, okay, it's better than what I'm thinking. I looked under the water and it was vast and calm and beautiful. And I started to be able to breathe. And I started to feel better. But I was like, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of this storm and I need to deal with this. So I came back up. The waves are still there, but I am still in that same place. But I'm looking at it a little differently. The complications of the waves, the complications of our lives were still there on the surface. But the voice came back and said, Lori, you're going to be okay. Go back under and see, right? So I go in and I start to appreciate the depth of the ocean and the calmness there, and that I was okay. My inner wisdom and surrendering to that moment allowed me to see that the surface of the ocean seemed to be crazy and big and powerful waves. They aren't that big, but they're big enough to bop you around. But in my surrender, I was able to see it for what it was as a whole. So I came back up a third time. You know me, I gotta be a little bit thick-skulled. The ocean was the same on the top. The gray sky was the same. But guess what? Inside, it was fine. I started enjoying the wave. I started seeing them for what they were. It's just velocity of water moving. And then I went and snorkeled and had an amazing time. That is what I'm talking about, the surrender, right? So think of yourself, this inner being, this who's ever observing, right? That observing being, that observing mind, that observing I in you can watch thoughts, can watch cravings, can watch emotions go by. You are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. You are the one observing. And when you realize that, there's a power in it because the surrender gives you the space. And that is the point that I want you to start this journey. And what's the next step? Well, I think the next step is really important. And the reason I say this is because sometimes people go into, I want to lose weight for this. I want to lose weight because I want to look good in a dress, or I want to lose weight so I can look like that and feel like I belong, or that I'm just as good. That is not how I want you to look at this. What I want you to think about, not even about so much about how much weight you need to lose, but I want you to think about why. And I want you to go deep. I want you to keep asking why until you feel some emotion. And maybe there's a couple of tears that are like swelling up in your eyes, right? And it's not going to be an onion. It'll be true emotional tears. And it's okay. I want you to surrender to the emotions that arise. You don't need to fight them. I need you to feel them, because that's the point that I want you to focus in on. So what is the value tied to that weight loss? I will use an example. I had a patient many years ago who needed to lose significant weight. And she goes, well, I want to lose weight to feel better. I was like, okay, why do you want to feel better? She goes, well, so I can move around more. Okay, so why do you want to move around more? She goes, well, I would like to be able to fly in a plane. I was like, tell me more about that. So I want to be able to fly in a plane without asking for a belt extension. And she started to swell up a little bit there. I was like, okay, but I felt an urge to ask her one more time. I was like, so why do you want to fly in a plane? She goes, so I can go see my daughter in Norway, and I can't make the trip right now because I just can't make that long of a trip. It's so uncomfortable and so painful. That is the point that she got to. And guess what? She was successful, and she went on to see her daughter. That is what I'm talking about. I want you to understand there's more to this life than just a scale. There's more to this life than wearing a certain clothing. There's more to this life than what this body looks like. You are so magnificent and sacred and special that inside you. Okay? I'm getting teary for you. Okay. So what is that value? For her, it's family. It's seeing her daughter. What would that value be for you? It may be something different. I don't know. But you have to do that work. And it's not that much, but you have to walk away from the fear. And the surrender piece, the fear dissipates, the anxiety dissipates, the stress dissipates. It literally absolves, it dissolves. Because if you give yourself space and allow yourself to think about things differently, to associate, why am I doing this? You will start seeing that there's wonderful times in this day to giggle at ourselves, right? To laugh at the absurd thoughts that we just have some strange thoughts that just they float out of nowhere like, well, that was entertaining. I will let you pass by thought. Oh, I'm feeling a little anxious. That's interesting. Turn inward, look into it, ask it. Interesting. Wonder why I'm feeling this. Where do I feel it in my body? What's happening is you become centered, you become now in this moment, and the anxiety will start to subside. Just like my panic attack in the ocean, this can help you as well. A craving, a stress, anger, fear, those are the worries. That's what I want you to focus on. Okay, so now we've done the breath, we've done the surrender, we understand, and now we're looking for the value. And finally, we're going to get to the checkoff list, right? So I spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but now these are the exact things you need to think about. One is I want you to focus in on what would be your ideal weight. This is your BMI of around 23 if you're above that, okay? This is just a general discussion to get you started, right? You would have to refine as you go, but this is the starting point. We'll say ideal weight in the general discussion is the BMI of around 23. That's just a number, but that number will change. But I don't want you to have some emotional attachment to it. I want you to disengage from the emotion of it and just realize this is just, again, a general direction that we're headed. Our compass is pointing in this direction of a BMI of around 23. Okay, and there's BMI calculators you can do. And I know people are like, but that's not the best way to determine weight and health and muscle. Stop it. The thoughts are coming. I hear you. We're just getting started. It will be refined. Next, what do we do after that? Well, now we got to understand that absolutely calories count. And can you gain weight on a plant-based diet? Yes. Do most people lose weight on a plant-based diet? Yes, especially when you're going from a standard American diet to a plant-based diet. Because guess what? You are eating lower calorie dense foods, right? So that alone will help you decrease your calorie intake for the day and you will begin to lose weight. Okay, so let's focus back in on how many calories, how do we actually calculate that? So what you want to do is just type in BMR calculator online. This will be your basal metabolic rate calculator. You're going to type in your gender, your age, your current weight, the current weight you're at, okay? And what will happen is it'll calculate for you what your basal metabolic rate is. So what does that mean? That means that if you were to lay in bed and do nothing, that was how many calories your body would need to maintain your current status. Because guess what? Your body is using calories just to breathe, to have the heart rate going, to think. Your brain uses 20% of your glucose every single day. There's a lot going on in here. So that's step 4 or 5, I don't even remember now where we're at. So you're at the BMR, right? You check that out. The next part of the BMR, many calculators will have this little graph. It'll say, do you have a sedentary lifestyle? Do you exercise 1 to 2 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week, 5+ times a week? Do you have a very physically active job like construction? Gauge where you are right now in your activity level. If you're sedentary, you go with that. Right? That is going to give you another calorie indicator. So that's added calories because you are doing something, you're up and walking around. If you're exercising 1 to 2 days per week, guess what? That would be the other point that's a little bit more calories because it takes a little bit more to exercise 1 to 2 times per week. Okay, so now we have our BMR. In addition, how many calories we do just from our daily activities. That is your starting point of the calories you would need to maintain your current status weight, right? And I'm not going to tell you to slash these by 500. I'm not going to tell you to slash it in half. That is unsustainable. You're going to lose muscle mass and you're going to feel fatigued and hate life. You're going to become hangry. We don't want hangry here. But what do we do now? Okay, you're going to download Chronometer or you're going to download MyFitnessPal, and you're going to become a calorie guru for 1 to 2 weeks. And I know it sounds like a pain and you're like, I don't have time to do this. Well, then you know what? You can scroll on, because until you start making different decisions and you start walking into this with an attitude of my health actually matters, and I'm coming from this with a different mindset, that I'm done suffering, this is where you're going to find success, right? You're going to have to do some work. I'm sorry to tell you, in this world of everything is given to us, especially in the Western world, you're going to have to do a little bit, and that's okay. You've done hard things before, and this is not that hard. Is it inconvenient? Is it something added? Yes, but it's the work we need to know to understand what you're doing. Okay, so now you have downloaded a chronometer, you downloaded MyFitnessPal. You're going to cut the calories down by 100 calories, okay? 100 calories only. You're going to have your starting weight, how many calories you should be doing, and then I want you to do is, remember that going back to that ideal body weight, I want you to take that number divided by 2.2 to convert it from pounds to kilograms. So whatever that weight is, let's say it's 130 pounds, that's around, I don't know, 65 kilograms. That is the minimum amount of protein you should be consuming. But that is 65 times 1 would be 1 gram per kilogram. That's the minimal. However, you probably want to go up to 1.2, even up to 1.4, especially if you're a man with already more muscle mass. And the reason I'm saying that is the next step I'm going to tell you is you want to be maintaining a certain amount of protein, one, to maintain and keep the muscle mass loss as much as possible so that you can actually lose weight in this caloric deficit, very minor caloric deficit. Okay, so you have your proteins and you have your calories. These are the two things I want you to focus on, along with the mindset piece that we just talked about. So how do you do this? Well, you can do a whole food plant-based diet. That's number one. That's an easy way to do that. Sometimes you may need to do a protein powder if you're really struggling. You don't have that much of an appetite and you're just like, I can't do this. It's too hard. That's okay. You can lean on protein powders, the good ones, on occasion. And that's okay. This is a time that you can do that. Don't be ashamed by doing it. Don't feel like, oh, I need to do this just this way. I'm just telling you, I'm going to share with you what works. But that would be the step, protein and calories, okay? And a lot of this seems like intuitive, but it really works, guys. And I will tell you, my friend Maxime from Fit Vegan, he's fantastic. If you really want to work with someone, they tell you this basic concept really came from him. It's amazing because it does work. The mindset piece is the work that I've seen with patients, and it makes it work. That's the magic sauce. The calories are one thing, but the magic sauce is the changes, because that is what's going to give you the sustainability of the losing the weight. So now you've got your calories, how much you should be doing. You've got your goals, keeping track of everything you eat and drink. Now, this first week, you may just want to track what you're doing, right? Because maybe you're cutting calories so much already that your metabolism has just come to a screeching halt. Now, if that's the case, we may need to approach things a little bit differently, but just calculate what you're doing. So, boom. Now what we want to do is go ahead and start figuring out 3 days a week that you can do some type of strength training, full body strength training, bands, calisthenics, go to the gym, hire a personal trainer. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Google, YouTube, lots of different ways to do it. And then I need you to walk at least half an hour every single day. And that, my friends, is the beginning. So I was so excited about sharing this piece with you, because the breath, the meaning, the surrender, the goals, the values, that is so important to any journey. If you can do that, learn to give space to a situation that's causing distress, you will be successful in the world's term of success. It may not look like success. You may have determined you're like, well, this is not worth my time anymore. This decision needs to be different. Or, oh, I have it within me to have this hard conversation, and you won't be fearful. You might be a little bit stressful to walk into a difficult conversation, but you'll have the confidence because you will be tapping into that inner strength and wisdom to have that difficult conversation, or to approach and add in new habits that seem scary because they're unfamiliar, but you absolutely can do it. Okay, so I know that was a lot. It's a lot to do. There's going to be a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions every time I put something like that, and sometimes very direct questions. I have a solution. It's called the Psychology of Weight Loss course. The link's below or in the little bio somewhere up there, depending on where you're watching this. That course will walk you through everything in the mindfulness piece, how to build that muscle, why, how to build healthy habits, and the 5 lifestyle interventions you need to do to really change your health and turn it around. And plus, there is monthly coaching with me for 3 months when you buy the course. So I've poured my heart and soul into this, guys. I hope you find it helpful. If you don't want to use this, maybe you can share it with someone who maybe will find it. But yeah, this is really so important. So anyway, as always, thank you for spending time with me. I appreciate you, and sending peace, love, and gratitude and joy your way. And you have a blessed rest of your weekend. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side.